and welcome to this, our final episode of season 1 of Rebrand podcast.
Our season finale.
That's what I said.
Well, you said final episode and pause just a little bit.
Okay.
Season finale.
You're right. This is our 25th episode.
Incredible.
Season 1 has been it's been a banger of an episode.
It's been something else. I mean, it sometimes I look back and think, man, we just started this thing. And other times it feels like we've been doing it for quite some time.
Forever. It's just natural. Well, this episode, we are looking back on some highlights, some lowlights, some things we've learned, some things we regret, all the things, all the emotions, everything that happened during this first season. So as GPT likes to write for us, sit back, grab your coffee, and settle in for this final episode of Rebrand Season 1.
Season 1.
All right. First question here. Tim, when you look back at the 24 episodes, the 24 pieces of art that we've created.
Art, yes.
Which is your favorite episode?
Oh, man. There have been episodes that I have really enjoyed. I really think I enjoyed the transparency that we focused on with Holston has trust issues.
Yeah.
That was one that I was nervous going into it as we were talking about it, but it just felt like real conversation. And I was so glad, these are conversations that people have had one-on-one. And I mean, obviously ours was one-on-one, but it was just nice to kind of feel like I was getting some things off of my chest.
Yeah. Mine is the same. That's the same. And that is by far our most viral. I mean, we got 57,000 views on that one. But it was my favorite. And I think that it was, maybe our loyal followers' favorite, because it was just, I mean, from the beginning when we started this podcast, it kind of came from a place where you and I would often say, man, that was such a good conversation we just had out of the blue. Like, we didn't plan on having this conversation. We didn't schedule something, but we just had this really like cool conversation where about a topic or about something that happened in the UMC or, whatever. And we would always say, man, that was a good conversation. We should have recorded that. And so that, I think the trust issues episode was the one that was closest to those conversations.
Yeah, I agree.
Where we so often say, man, that should have, and once we started the podcast, then often once a week, I think we would have a moment where we'd be talking off camera, like not as a part of anything, just saying, talking about the nitty gritty, talking about the inside scoop or, whatever was happening. And we'd talk for half an hour and go, man, why didn't we record that?
Yep. That's that has been our tagline. Why
didn't we record that? So from now on, we're just gonna hire someone to follow us around with a boom mic.
Truly be the office. Huh?
That's right. Okay.
Well, wait a minute. Before we go to the next question, I have also really, really enjoyed these AI discussions that we're having, and partially because it's so brand new, and we're still learning and we're still trying to figure things out. And I'm looking forward to further discussions about AI. But I've really enjoyed that, and I loved. I know it was early on, and we were still learning for sure, but I loved the annual conference recaps.
Yeah,
those were exhausting nights, but they were fun to put together.
They were, and one of our later on in the episode here, we're going to talk about what do we hope for next season, and I think we'll definitely be back doing the recaps at annual conference.
Yes,
I have some exciting ideas about what that looks like. So we'll see. I do think AI has become a big part of this podcast, and it didn't really start out that way.
No,
we started this in June, and I think I had played around barely with ChatGPT, and that was probably about it.
Yeah.
And by now, like at this point, like a lot of our intros aren't always written by us. But also like a lot of the additional content that goes out with our episodes, email, social media, um, uh, YouTube captions, all that stuff is heavily influenced by artificial intelligence. And we've, I think, documented a lot of that, and a lot of ways that we're using AI for the podcast and elsewhere. So yeah, that's been really cool, and I think we'll continue doing more of that.
Yeah, and just like should have recorded conversation right before we got on here, we were talking a little bit about putting this together. We just released the last episode. It went out today. We're recording on the day that our last episode went out. And where we have found AI to help us out is speeding up some of the processes that we would normally do. And I think that's the thing that we'll kind of focus on, is how we can use AI in a way that helps us extend our time, or gives us a little bit more time in our day. Because if we were doing this professionally and we really focused on the podcast, I mean, it would be very, very easy to spend 20 hours on this one podcast.
Yeah.
Obviously, we've got other jobs that we have to do. So you have found a way to incorporate AI that takes a full day's process and narrows it down to, what'd you say?
An hour.
About an hour.
Really, yeah. So what I shared earlier was, after the video, the audio is all done editing. I mean, it's saved on my computer. It's ready. Maybe the video is uploading to YouTube. Then there's still all this work to be done, which is all the captions, the blog post, the email, the subject line, social media, all of that stuff would take, I think, a day. I mean, I think that's 8 hours of work.
Yeah, easily.
That using ChatGPT, using Describe, using some Adobe AI tools, I think maybe an hour, maybe an hour and a half to do all that work. And I mean, I think just now in these last couple episodes, I've really gotten that down to a science.
And we anticipate, as AI gets better as it goes, that time will probably be cut down, because it's machine learning. And so it's going to be learning the processes that we put in. And so it's going to get quicker, and we're going to get quicker about how we prompt it and how we put things in, and the information we get out of it.
Yep, absolutely.
All right. So we talked about favorite episode. What do you think has been your most surprising moment in season 1?
Most surprising moment. I mean, I I think back to one of the very first things that we filmed, and this was also maybe one of the most fun, I think, was we did the making introductions episode. It was episode 1, but it was started out as the trailer, and then we turned it into the episode 1. And actually it used ChatGPT. So from the beginning, we did do some AI. But we wrote an introduction, right, for what the podcast is, what Rebrand is about. And then we said, now rewrite it as a Valley Girl. Rewrite it as what else did we do in corporate jargon?
We did generation
a WWE wrestler.
Yes, yep.
Gen Z.
X or Gen Z. Yeah, that's right, Gen Z.
And that, I mean, and then we like paired it with music. It was a blast.
It was.
I mean, it dissolved into chaos. That was, I don't know. It was just how easily we fell into just having fun and like goofing off.
Yeah.
I think that was surprising. Yeah.
I would say my most surprising moment, I have wanted to do a podcast for several years now, especially once I came on as director of communications. But I'm still surprised 6 months into it, or 5 months into it, 25 episodes into it, how much I love it.
Yeah.
How much I look forward to it. It's just a lot of fun. And as we talked about in the episode that released today, it's one of those things that gives me energy. It's something that I'm able to step away from kind of the rat race of things to do, and I get to just do something I enjoy.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, I think surprising to me is how much we've changed from episode 1 until episode 25, 26. We just kind of we rebrand every week because we don't know what we're doing.
We do. I think the structure of an episode changes from week to week.
Structure. What is this thing you call structure?
So you're right. The amount of structure the episode has changes throughout the week. The set has changed quite a bit from the beginning. Yeah. The technology that we're using. I mean, even this episode, we have new soft boxes that we're using for the first time.
Yep.
That'll look a little bit different. Not, yeah. I mean, it's constantly evolving. There's no consistency. Consistency is the enemy of creativity. That's what I always say.
One thing that we never have talked about on air, at least, is the set design itself. And as people begin to kind of look at these robots.
Yeah, that's my good friend Pile Driver.
Pile Driver over there.
I had these posters from I've had them for several years, and they were in my office in the past place I worked, and I brought them over. I got one more to add to finish it out when we kind of built this, and originally they were just going to be kind of placeholders until I found something else to put here.
Yeah,
because I didn't think it was quite appropriate to have Pile Driver. Right? I don't know what it means, but it doesn't sound good.
Well,
but that's Pile Driver. Then we got my girl Analog over here.
Okay.
El Diablo. El Diablo over there.
The devil.
I can't. Yeah, I know. I can't tell what the yellow one says. Can you read it? What do we got there?
Atomotron.
Yeah. Oh, I totally forgot. That's my longtime friend.
Yeah.
Atomotron. But none of them are. I'm not as close with any of them as I am with Pile Driver.
Of course, and going back to what you were saying, if we're starting off with WWE voices, then we've got to have a good Pile Driver.
You're right. You're right.
So maybe that's been the only consistent thing we've had.
Yeah. Jeez.
Wow.
All right. We've had a lot of guests
we have.
on. Some for a whole episode. Some we've just like spotlighted somebody for a little bit.
Yep.
I'm not gonna say who is your favorite guest. That's not fair to all of our friends.
Sure.
And enemies. But maybe what's an insight that a guest shared or something that stuck with you from the interviews or the conversations that we had?
I think one of the big ones has been Charles Maynard when he was on and kind of talked about the bicentennial, and more information's coming out about bicentennial.
Yep.
We're hitting it hard in January and going through the 200-year celebration for 2024.
Yep.
But Charles was on and he was talking about how history, when we think about it, it's not that far. 200 years is not forever ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it's only a couple of generations when you start to think, and when you start to think about it's just a few generations back, it kind of changes perspective. And the other thing that he said that I hope that through this next year we can really grab hold of is that our churches need to write down their history. They need to record their history. Because we don't want to lose that. If our most recent history is from the 80s or 90s, then that means we're missing 30 and 40 years.
Yeah.
So we've got to do that. What about you? What's some insights that you've taken away?
I mean, I think we've had some great guests, and they have all had some smart things to say. They I think probably all of our guests have raised the level of intellect on the show. The episodes with guests are always have more like actual content than the ones that we do ourselves. I don't know. We have some good things to say.
We have fun.
We do have fun. I think back to the conversation we had with Elias Stummer.
Yeah.
Every time I've talked with him, and especially having him on the podcast and kind of the pre-interview. Remember when we did pre-interviews?
Yeah.
That was fun. That talking to him before he came on the podcast, back and forth a little bit. I was like, man, this guy, he gets it.
He's sharp.
And he's a great communicator. The things he has to say are just really smart.
Yeah.
So, if I'm recommending ones to go back to, I think Charles is a good one to go back to. I think the Elias Stummer episode is also really good one to go back to. It all about talked about worship leading, and some of the work that he's doing there. He talked a lot about bivocational ministry and him being a full-time worship pastor, band leader, and very successful at both of those.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? Internationally known.
Yeah.
At both of those, but that across all of that, he was working for a branding company of his own, marketing, and a number of other companies, and that there was some freedom in that, and he just had some really smart stuff to say. So.
And he's Canadian, so he's just a nice guy.
Yeah,
just a super nice guy.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna jump ahead so you don't have time to think. What's the worst episode that we've produced? I pulled them up on my phone to look at them.
Oh, wow. I would say the worst episode we produced is the one that never made it. So
sure.
That there was some content. It was good content. It was we had good intentions, but it was also early on.
Yeah.
And some of the recording wasn't very good, and we didn't do a great job of intervening when we should have with the guest, and it just kind of went off the rails more than what we do now. So I'm not going to name anyone or embarrass anyone or do anything like that, but
sure. Yeah. I have two nominations for worst episode. As scrolling back through, the first one is I think I'm just gonna say one. I think that I was gonna dog on one, but I don't need to do that. I think the worst one was the vacations episode. And probably most of our listeners are going back and saying, "What was he talking about? There was a vacation episode?" Because no one listened to it because it was the most boring episode ever. It was just us talking about the vacations that were going on. How does that have to do anything with what we're talking about at all?
Well, that's called we needed a subject. We needed to get a podcast out. That's when we were still doing them weekly.
Yeah.
And that was not our best idea.
Every once in a while, we are sitting in my office or Tim's office, and we go, wait, have you looked at the calendar? If we don't film something like tomorrow.
Yeah, like we've got 3 hours that we've got to go set up and do this right now.
Otherwise, you're out of town this week. I'm out of town next week. And then we're both out of town on this. It's man. Yeah. They're not all hits,
No, that's true. And that goes back to, if we could do this full time for a living,
sure.
man, we could put some really great stuff out there. But we hope that our viewers and listeners, give us a pass every once in a while. And while we're talking about that, we do want to give a big shout out to the viewers and listeners.
Yeah.
We do appreciate the comments. We, when I get an email that says, "Hey, I really enjoyed this," or "This was funny," or "Love what you guys are doing," it means a lot to us.
Yeah. Even if you comment and say something like, "The intro music is too loud." I appreciate your heart, and I'll delete your comment.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're going to say something like that, send those to Ben. Just the only thing I want is the love.
Post it. I might delete it, but post it. Jeez.
All right. So as we laugh through here, what do you think has been the funniest moment? What would you consider as the funniest moment?
I think the making introductions was pretty great.
Yeah.
I also loved, and we got a lot of engagement from drafting fantasy teams.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That was our mid-season premiere, I think. Yeah, I think it was. That was our mid-season premiere.
Yeah,
the first
sure
time
enough.
that our lovely listeners got to see my beautiful face.
Oh.
That was good. That might have been a highlight for me.
Yeah. Funniest moment for me is probably well, not probably. It's the off-camera stuff.
It's the stuff they don't get to see.
The stuff that we have to edit out when we make mistakes. You think the mistakes that we leave in are bad, man. you these outtakes, if they ever get out there, we may be jobless and homeless,
sometimes
and all kinds of things.
Stuff gets too real, and we're like, oh wait, no. All right, we're gonna have to cut that real quick.
Back it up. But
true.
Again, it just goes to the fact that we're having fun.
Yeah.
And love it.
Next season, we're gonna as I edit and cut those out, I'm just gonna make a gag reel.
Oh.
For us to selectively share.
So that's the blackmail reel. Is that what that is?
No, that's the for our subscribers who want a little extra and they want to pay for
subscription.
A subscription.
Yes.
That's going to be behind the paywall.
Love it.
Yeah,
behind the paywall. All right.
All right. Well, before I want to move on and talk about what it was like to host a podcast and everything, but I do want to just briefly talk a little bit about, as far as the subject material, the guests that we have, the content of the podcast. Looking forward to next season. How do you want to change, grow, or improve? What does next season look like in your head?
Before I answer that, I do want to say I've enjoyed, as I've looked back on this season, I've enjoyed seeing the little improvement that we have made.
Yeah.
When between just sitting down at a table with a couple of microphones to having a little bit better setup, we got Pile Driver back there. We got the video. I love the evolution of the social media and the website, Rebrand podcast.com.
Rebrand_pod on Instagram.
Love what you're doing with the graphics, the graphic designs. Again, I'm going to go to the episode that we released today, talking about burnout and things. There's been some really cool things, a little bit of animation in there, and I just
the smallest amount.
I like seeing that little bit of improvement. As we move forward, I think some of the things that we're hoping to see and hoping to do is, with our interviews, we'll be using a program that we introduced a little bit that we're learning, Riverside. It's similar to Zoom, but it was kind of made and dedicated for podcasting.
Yep.
A lot of your podcast, if you do watch any podcast, they use that. And so you can see a little bit of the side-by-side guest and things. So we anticipate using that more because the topic, and we'll tell you about that in just a moment, but the topic that we're going to be talking about causes us to go a little more outside of the walls of the conference.
Wow.
And so looking forward to that. What about you?
Yeah, I think we did make a lot of improvements from the beginning of the season to the end. And I think my focus from a production standpoint was always make it sustainable.
Yeah.
So don't do anything that I don't think I can continue to do, in perpetuity, however long we do this podcast. And so I was a little hesitant to do anything too technologically advanced, or too time consuming, because I don't want to overextend myself on the pod. So, with that said, I think next season I want to push it a little bit more and maybe have a little bit more graphics, motion graphics, maybe do a little bit more. If we're talking about a piece of software or tool, we can do some screen recording on that and mix that in. We have all these lovely sound effects over here that we don't that we don't use very often. We can, put some new sound effects on. We can do some more, just polish things up a little bit, make things look and sound a little better. In a small, slow progression, so that
Right.
it continues to be sustainable. But make it a little more fun.
And again, that is the biggest thing is the as much as we love doing this, we've got a limited amount of time
Yeah.
to be able to dedicate toward it. So the limited amount of time, we want to make it the best that we can.
Yep.
Well,
and I don't know any other 3-camera video podcasts that don't have a producer behind the camera. There's no one else in this room.
Yeah.
There's we're it.
Yep, that's
so
it.
we're like checking focus on each other, like, are they recording? I don't know. I don't know. One of them, I can see a red light on one of them. 2 of them don't show me red lights. So
we hope and pray so much during this podcast.
Yeah. So I think up in the production quality a little bit. All right, so let's move on. I want to talk about, this is the first time this podcast is the first time either of us have done, podcasting, long form content like this. We are both communicators, and so we talk or we write or we film for a living, but this is still pretty different from the rest of the work that we do.
Yeah,
and it was a new experience for us. So what was it like starting a podcast? How has that been for you, Tim?
It's been wild. I've got to learn several new tools. When it comes to audio editing, when we were just doing the audio, you introduced me to some new tools that we could use. Yep. With the social media, it's taken us to a different area. The technology behind audio in general, when it comes to this piece of equipment, which is just it's the Rodecaster, or is that right? Rodecaster. Yep. That allows us to travel if we wanted to. We've got the microphones, the cameras. It's been a lot, but I do like how we've taken steps and progressions in learning the stuff. It's not hard to get started. We started with audio only and jumped on to Buzzsprout, which kind of does a lot of work for us. We decided that we would pay a little extra and let it do some audio enhancements for us, which I think has been a good thing. It saves us a little bit of time.
Yeah.
But really, if you've got a recording device, and something to talk about,
you do.
You do. Yeah.
Plenty of people just use a phone for their podcast.
Yeah. I mean, you can start one of these things and then grow as you move into it. And if I was talking to someone that wanted to start a podcast, I would tell them, start there. Grab your phone, get a guest, record something, and see if you enjoy doing it. And then, because the technical side, if you don't enjoy that and you don't have someone helping you out, your podcast isn't going to last very long, because that would get tedious.
Right.
But as long as you can jump in there and you enjoy that part, then you just start and then grow.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think for me, it's been great. From a production standpoint, nothing that I hadn't done before.
Yeah.
Each piece individually, but it is kind of putting everything together and then doing it in a way where I can be on set and not be behind the camera at the same time.
Yeah.
So that was I'm skipping ahead. The next one was unexpected challenges, but that was the challenge for me, was figuring out how to produce it well without being behind the camera the whole time. So, set it and forget it, which is stressful at times, but
it is.
But once you get it down, once you figure it out, then you can start to be more comfortable with that.
And we even started we started with a bigger picture in mind. We did some recording at the video recording at the very beginning, and realized, hey, we need to back off because we've got a lot to learn.
We did. Yeah, I mean, we started running everything through a switcher, and we had like both computers were recording computer, we were recording audio from Riverside for a virtual guest. We were doing all, I mean, I was gonna like live switch on the ATEM, and one episode in, I was like, shoot, this is a lot.
It is a lot
work, and more than that, I can't like be present as a host, like as a member of the podcast, and be doing all that production,
directing, and producing.
Yeah, and I'll be honest. I mean, we had an episode once we started video where like the like recording messed up audio. Like I didn't have the audio from a whole episode. Either I like wrote over a card, or I lost a card. I still don't really know, but we lost a whole episode. And I think that probably boils down to I was on set and not behind the camera, and filling both of those roles, things get lost.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
That was the biggest challenge for me.
Yeah, yeah. I think for me too, one of my biggest things was, and you helped me with this. We started out using a teleprompter, so we could look into the camera while we're talking. And because I think eye contact with your audience is really good. But what you helped me understand is it's okay to look down at your notes on this, and who you winking at?
They know.
Oh, they do. Okay. All right.
Yeah, they know.
So you helped me to step back a little bit and not worry so much to be a TV news anchor, and to just be relaxed. And if you need to look down, and if you need to read something, you do. And then we go back and have conversation. That was the other thing too, is one of our goals was not to be an interview podcast where we ask a question and then we just let the guest speak.
And I think sometimes we did better at that than others.
Absolutely. I think we've grown into it. And I think that's why we ended up doing so much of this, because we want it relational. We want it conversational.
Yep.
And so, excuse me, that was a little bit of a learning curve, and a little bit of a challenge to figure out how do we make that work.
Yeah, definitely.
So what's been your favorite part about the podcast?
I don't know. I think recently it's been kind of just the creativity of getting an idea and then working it through to a finished product.
Okay. Give me an example. What are you talking about?
So, I mean, we decide we want to do an episode on making introductions, and we script out a whole episode for introducing ourselves, introducing the podcast, talking about the skill of introductions. You know, there's different ways to package all of that and to connect different pieces of it. I mean, I think when I look to the work that I've done in video production, in documentary, in all kinds of production, the parts of the creative process that I am always drawn to is as the producer.
Yeah.
So rather than the editor or the director, it's the producing role, which I think I'm best at, which I certainly enjoy doing the most. And it's looking at the big picture and figuring out how to make it happen.
Yeah.
Getting the pieces in order, getting the right people into the right places, and pulling people together, and making sure everything flows from one thing to the other. That's the part of any kind of creative process that I am drawn to. And so that's, I think, the part of podcasting that I like the most.
Okay. You're definitely better at that than the on-air talent. That's
I agree.
For sure.
No, I agree. Yeah. Yep.
To each their own.
Yeah. So that's your favorite then? Your favorite part of podcasting is being on camera?
No. I actually can't stand being on camera. I was way more comfortable when we were doing audio only. I think my favorite part about podcasting is just being able to share back and forth, and you know, having the conversation, and still doing work, but fun work.
Yeah, we're working.
Yeah.
This is work. No, yeah, but yeah, my favorite part was also just being here with you. That's what I meant to say. Yeah. Yeah, buddy.
Whatever. Whatever.
All right. Balancing content and entertainment, this whole, the dichotomy between like, are we doing something useful or are we just having fun, or is there value add content here, or are we just entertaining people? Or is entertainment the value that's being added?
For me, it's all about entertainment.
Yeah.
It's all about making sure that I have a good time.
Yeah.
That's that's been one of our toughest things that we've had to deal with in all seriousness is, okay, what is the value add? All the time we're asking, what are people going to get out of this? What is this going to help our listeners? Are they going to care? Is it going to be another vacation episode where it's like, what the heck are you doing?
Yeah.
That is probably for me the hardest part.
Yep.
Is doing something, one, that we have some knowledge about, and can talk about it and not just fluff our way through everything. And two, who cares? It can be tough sometimes.
Yeah. And I think finding the middle ground, because we don't want it to be just pure chaos of us talking about whatever we want to talk about, but we also don't want it to be like a lecture series.
Exactly. Yeah.
So there's a middle ground there somewhere, and I don't know where that line,
we're still looking
spot
for it.
is.
Yeah.
And I think that our target moves also, like sometimes we feel like doing something that's a little bit more educational, and sometimes that's the last thing we want to do. So, and I think I'm fine with that. I think that we're fine with that kind of that middle ground being pretty large.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is more content driven, more educational. Sometimes we're goofing off and drafting fantasy teams.
That's exactly right. One of the things, kind of going back to a question that has been posed a little bit earlier, with the podcast, I would love to get feedback from our listeners when it comes to our timing issues, or not issues, but we were really kind of stringent in the beginning to try to stay around that 20 to 30 minute mark for audio. When we went video, we decided, hey, since we're doing video, we can do some more things. We're going to be a little more flexible on the time.
Yeah.
And I think our longest episode topped around an hour.
Yeah.
And I think most of our video episodes have been in that 40, 45 minute range.
Yep.
And I would love to get some feedback to find out, okay, do you like that? Is that an appropriate time? Is that too long? Is that, I know it's not too short, but what do people think about that?
Well, my brother, who I didn't think listened to the podcast.
Yeah.
But does, or maybe listen to a single episode. I don't know. But he told me that it feels like you always talk. I think he was talking about both of us. So I think he said you always talk like a third too long. Like on everything you talk about, it's just like a third too long. So maybe I'm just a 2/3 listener. That's what he said. He said, maybe I'm just a 2/3 listener, but we get like most of the way through. And then I'm like, man, you could just move on now.
Yeah.
So you know what? If that's your critique, bring it on.
Yeah.
Let me know.
Yeah. That is something, when you ask, what do I want for the podcast? I would like more of feedback.
Yeah.
It would be great to know what we can do, one, to help us balance. So topics, if people have topics they want us to talk about, that would be great to hear. And then from a time standpoint, that would be good to hear.
Maybe you're not a 2/3 listener. Maybe I'm a 4/3 talker.
4/3.
That's the math.
Wow.
They'll figure it out.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the right math.
Okay.
You didn't do math
No, I'm a communicator, not a mathematician.
There you go. I learned that in calculus 3. Just kidding. Another time. All right. Let's see. Choosing topics. How did you go about deciding on topics for each episode, and were they any topics that you wanted to cover but couldn't?
The first part was, man, we spend time every week talking about the podcast and talking about what do we need to talk about. What's the next episode going to be about? Do we need a guest for this? Is this something that we can handle on our own? And what do we have time to do? Because some of it, there's been things that we've not really gotten into because we just haven't had the time to do the research. So there's definitely some topics that we want to research a little bit more, get some information in our hands before we bring it to the air. I don't know what else you got to say about that. I'll try to stop at the halfway point instead of going a third too long on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we every once in a while found ourselves in searching for a topic because we needed an episode and we weren't sure what we wanted to talk about. And so I think our part of our plan for the next season is to do some more big picture planning and looking ahead more so that we have more time. Those topics that we don't have time to prep for in the week, once we decided we wanted to do it, if we plan ahead farther, then we have more time to produce that. So I think finding being able to do some of those more involved topics, I think is a big part of looking forward to the future.
All right. So we've talked about the podcast. We've talked a little bit about where we want to move forward. We've recapped season 1. What's on the horizon for us?
This season, it was all about rebranding Holston Conference. What does it look like to look at our mission and vision and kind of change that and live into our new mission and vision? What does local church look like as we move into new seasons of ministry? This upcoming season, season 2, what are we doing, Tim?
Well, I think it's time for us to make season 2 a little bit bigger. I think we need to broaden the scope. I think we need to dive in to the bigger universe, and let's just rebrand the UMC.
Ooh. So the two of us.
Yes.
You heard it here first.
Yeah.
The two of us are rebranding the entirety of the United Methodist Church.
Denomination wide.
Stay tuned for that. No one gave us permission to do that. No, not quite. But we are calling it Re-UMC.
Yeah.
And not so much that the two of us are rebranding
the denomination. Doing anything, really.
No, we're not doing anything. But just as you are a part of the UMC, we are a part of the UMC, and we are a part of the change that is happening in the UMC. Yeah. It is, I mean, our denomination is going through a rebranding, a redefining of mission and vision, redefining of the structure of the UMC, of what we stand for, what we believe. That's all. I mean, that's all up in the air. We're all.
It is.
It's all happening.
Yep.
And so, not that we are going to be changing that, but we're part of it, and we're going to talk about what we're seeing.
Yeah. We really want to focus on things as we lead up to General Conference that takes place the end of April into May. Yeah. We will be filling you in and letting you know some of the things, the resolutions, the things that are going to be talked about there. We'll chat about. But we also really want to talk about what's happening in other conferences. We've seen some of the things that have happened in the Holston Conference, and how we have gotten smaller, but maybe in getting smaller, we've actually grown closer,
more concentrated.
It is. You know? I think our relationships there, we're seeing a new dynamic in our relationships. We're seeing a new dynamic in what it means to be a connectional system, and we want to dive into that. And so we're going to go out to other conferences. We're going to go out to other agencies within the United Methodist Church and kind of interview and talk to them about their thoughts on what's happening in the UMC, how we're all affected by the change that is taking place. And we just want to be a part of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things that I love about the UMC the most, and I think one of the most defining things about the UMC is how connectional it is.
Yeah.
I mean, in our DNA, we are connected more than any denomination in the world.
Yeah.
I mean, we function as a body, as a whole body at the conference, jurisdictional, general conference level.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes we forget that, and depending on where you are in that structure, you may not see as much of it as we do. And so I'm excited to share some of that, and a lot of that is new for me. So in the last couple of years that I've been on staff, I've seen more of the structure of the UMC at the jurisdictional level. I do some work there. And we get to partner with some of our other communicators and across the jurisdiction. And then at the general conference level, I'm starting to make more relationships there, and that has been really cool. And I'm excited. That is a source of excitement for me. And so my hope is that we can kind of share that with some of our listeners, some of our watchers, that you can be a part of the connectional system that is the UMC.
And talking about the connectional system and talking about a worldwide system, let's give the folks a snippet of what's about to happen in your life over the next week. You're getting ready to leave, and tell just a snippet of the story about what's going to take place.
In 2 days, I'm getting on a plane to go to Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. So Middle East, which is a region of the world that I have not been to. So I'm super excited about that. It was purely as a vacation. My sister works in DC. She's going,
not works in DC. She works
for the White House. Yeah. Flex. Very proud of her. She's the overachiever of the family. So I was just a plus one with her. And so I was going to go, and while she was attending COP28, COP is a annual meeting conference of all about environmental sustainability and combating global warming, and all the big heads of state and anyone who's anybody is there. And so she was going. I was going to go with her and see some of the conference, but also just like sightsee across Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And then I was in Nashville a couple weeks ago for a United Methodist Communications seminar, and I met the comms director for General Board of Church and Society. Super cool guy. First time I met him, and he talked about Church and Society's presence at COP28 coming up, and I said, "Hey, funny enough, I'm gonna be there. If you want, if there's anything I can do to help there." And he said, "Oh, Ben, you don't know what you got yourself into," because the comms director's not going. Also, his media person isn't going on the trip, and so I'm gonna get to do some video work, some communications work. I don't quite know what that's gonna look like, but it's gonna be fun. Whatever it is. And I mean, that's exciting that I'm a part of a system that has these opportunities where I can meet somebody and then in 2 weeks later see his entire team in halfway across the world doing work together.
Well, I mean, you went to Nashville for a conference, a training. You met someone from DC.
Yep.
And you're going to be working with them halfway around the world in Dubai. Yeah. And all for the ministry and mission through the United Methodist Church. Yeah. And that's just cool. So we want to, in season 2, we want to talk about that connection, and we want to bring it to a bigger forefront than maybe what it has been in our minds. Really focus on growing that connection. Another thing that we will continue to talk about, and we may just add this as a segment. We've talked about this. will be AI. Since AI is playing a big part in what we're doing, and since it's so new, we thought instead of having full episodes focus on it, we may do bits and pieces and continue to talk about how that can be a part of your ministry in a good way.
Yeah, absolutely. So stay tuned for that.
Yep.
We are taking a little bit of a break for
Merry
the holidays.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year's. So we'll take a few weeks off. You can catch us sometime in January. TBD when that happens. But keep an eye out. It'll be a Tuesday. Just decided it'll be a Tuesday. So some Tuesday in January
we'll be back.
So until then, hit us up on Instagram, rebrand_pod. Check out our website, rebrandpodcast.com.
Send us some feedback. Let us know timing. Let us know
Give me
topics.
a fractional amount that I need to decrease the amount of speaking that I'm doing.
Rebrand at holston.org.
Rebrand at holston.org.
That's the email
address. If you want to email us, Insta DM us.
Yeah. We also need to find out. So Eli, your brother's a 2/3 listener. What's your sister?
Listener. She's a 0/5 listener.
Wow. Wow.
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, she got a shout out in this episode. So.
I know you got a week with her in Dubai, so maybe you can change that.
Maybe she'll be a 1/10 listener,
or a one time
listener. Yeah, we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you so much for tuning in and watching or listening, whatever you do. We really appreciate it. We hope you've enjoyed this season. We hope that you'll be back next season.
Smash that subscribe button.
That's right. We're going to bring new content, and we hope that you enjoy it. But until next time,
Merry Christmas
and Happy New Year.
Yeah.
Bye.